the short version.
Really?
And with that comment, we're live.
Christmas.
We've all heard this budget, so
This meeting though was open at 1:40. It was to be a public meeting, so I think we probably should go through the highlights of it so that if people want to watch it on YouTube, Dave, that they can.
we're gonna vote on whether we put it on YouTube.
Is it streamed by consensus? You don't agree to that?
What was the vote?
I'd ask.
It doesn't have a consensus.
The consensus or the majority?
Yeah.
Didn't vote to do it. Okay, go ahead.
And at that, I'll pass it to CAO Cassidy.
Good afternoon. So this is our public budget presentation. I apologize if I look a little dumber than usual, but I fell asleep last night reading the budget and I crunched my glasses. Anyway,
I'm just, if you don't mind, just going to ask, you've had a question. Are you saying that Krista presented a boring budget and you?
that was it. Yeah, that was it.
So true.
So you've all got the new budget package in front of you. As you go in, go through the background. Of course, you all participated in the background, so I think you're really familiar. We did a survey in June and August, the department heads. Krista and I met with department heads several times. Draft budget for comments, council workshops, November 21st, 22nd, December 4th and 11th, and then the public presentation today, and then holding it over for comment and hope to present it at the January 14th regular council meeting for approval. So the 2020 to 2023 budget reflects a continuing model of demonstrated fiscal responsibility by maintaining responsible budgets in each department and by preparing, planning, and setting aside reserves for future expenditures. Each year, administration challenges departments to provide long-term plans and budget conservatively. This year, after balancing developing our balanced budget with council, the provincial government within 12 hours downloaded a new budget line to rural municipalities policing. We found ourselves back at the drawing board in the 11th hour in an effort to rebalance our budget, absorbing not only a loss of $200,000 in MSI funding, and looking for a source of income to fund the $145,000 line for policing in 2020. We were further asked to fund this policing with $218,138 in 2021, $290,643 in 2022, and $436,277 in 2023, stabilizing at that rate, but in 2024, preparing for cost of living increases thereon. With no new revenue sources to capitalize on, the County of Stettler will present a balanced budget, but ratepayers and taxpayers will find a new line for policing services, which we will collect and remit to the province. This is not unlike the education tax remittance or the senior housing remittance that we already see. A taxpayer paying approximately $3,000 in property taxes can expect to see a new approximate $33 a year in police services on their tax bill. The County of Stettler will continue to investigate long-term gravel supplies, having secured a second gravel pit. We will test further county sites throughout the next 2 years to establish future opportunities which may exist. The Stettler Regional Emergency Management Agency continues to operate out of the County of Stettler with a focus on plan evaluation. We have hired 2 contractors to update our current plan and assist with planning for our own citizens as well as the town of Stettler, all the villages and summer villages within our borders. Our Protective Services Department will continue to lead us through to a comprehensive and secure plan for emergency management. We will continue to maintain current levels of service and prioritize citizen and community needs as established. We will welcome the Village of Gadsby, or we welcome, I can't read, it keeps going blurry. We welcome the Village of Gadsby to the County of Stettler family with this transition beginning early in 2020. So I'll turn it over to Krista for budget. Thank you.
So you guys have seen this budget. We've worked through it a few times. So I'm just going to discuss a lot of the stuff on higher level as the same as we've been doing all along. In your package, as you see before you, we have the strategic priorities, and I'm not going to go through all of those. That's something you guys have set, and it's just more for a reference for you guys and how we've tied the budget back to start the strategic priorities. If you flip to page 7, we've got the net expenses by department, and I'm gonna let you guys stay on those pages and I'm gonna flip back to some of the summaries by the departments for you. So if, depending on where you're wanting to follow along, notes and everything here. So, general taxes, and so that's at the top of page, I've got 2 budgets here, top of page 7. So, as Yvette spoke about, we do have one budget line that we did add in regards to the policing, so our taxes have increased by that. Another thing that we had to do was the 145 in policing, but we also had to deal with loss in MSI funding, which you'll see later on within Public Works. But we also had M&E, so we estimate we have a $1 million loss in M&E this year due to changes within the oil sector that we're seeing. That being said, we do have some additional tax revenue that we're going to be seeing from other developments that will assist with bringing that shortfall up. We also propose a 1.6% increase to taxes, and that's for a cost of living adjustment, same as that we have discussed with the cost of living with council earlier this month. So overall, when you look at our taxes from 2019 to 2020, everything is still pretty status quo. There's some a small increase of $20,000 overall from last year to this year, but that's to do with a lot of the information that I've discussed. One thing that I didn't say, just for everybody to be aware of, you do see the 4 years of budgets there from 2020 to 2023, and that's the budget that we have to present based on the MGA. The 2020 is the only budget we have to show as a balanced budget. 2021 to 2023 are strictly for planning purposes, so council's aware of future projects that we're going to be seeing, trends that we may discover. With our capital, you'll see a 6-year capital budget. 2020 is the only one that we fully worry about, but the other 5 years are there, so that way you are planning and looking ahead for what we will have coming down the line as well. So I'm going to jump into our biggest department, and that's Public Works, which is on page 9 of your net expenses by department. So the recent amalgamation of Ag Services and Public Works has now been rebranded as Operations. This allows us to establish synergies to lengthen the season for much of the work Ag Services completes by utilizing permanent Public Works staff for many program areas and reassigning seasonal summer staff on activities that are shorter in duration and that require less training on PW activities or Public Works activities. Cross-training staff is a major focus, and it will be continued path for developing built-in efficiencies. Our gravel program delivery will continue with county resources completing the program with a couple of higher owned operator trucks working alongside the county forces. Gravel road surface maintenance, greater beat work, patchwork will carry on, and we plan on continuing reshaping and narrowing roads to restore cap and crown with a small rehabilitation crew. The goal is to identify roads due to gravel on the program and complete reshaping before gravel is applied, realizing further efficiencies with gravel use. We have identified road classifications in each ward in consultation with each councillor. This information will be used to focus greater efforts on identified back roads, providing more regular blading and shaping and not hauling cost aggregates to patch these areas. We'll be replacing 1 or 2 bridge-sized culverts that have recently become unserviceable. We'll complete PFRA drainage project restorations of channels we're responsible for and restore areas that have flooded over last year by lifting road crossings, upsizing culverts, and installing erosion protection. Other continued areas of work and operations will include winter season brushing for road safety, increased improvements in hamlets, subdivisions, and lake areas for mowing, and general maintenance of small environments. Plan remain for continued development for the new Public Works facility yard and restoration and move out of our old yard. We will work diligently on long-term gravel source development and will be testing existing county lands and documenting volumes of undeveloped existing resources. We plan to do a small crush at the Bridges pit and also more centrally Ben or south. There's also some plans for fleet replacements of vehicles, and we'll be looking at leasing and working with a company to lease vehicles, and that's something we've discussed with council extensively over the last couple of months. So some of the ongoing projects will be in Botha. We'll continue to work on west drainage. There's going to be road reshaping planned that include Range Road 195 north of Highway 601, Schollard Road from Township Road 350 to Highway 590, Township Road 392 from Highway 56 east, Warden Road from Highway 56 west as time allows. We'll also be continuing to work on gravel pit reclamations. There'll be development of the new yard as ongoing as restoration teardown does continue at the old yard as well. So some of the projects that were considered for 2020 to 2023 are restructuring and applying light oil on multiple roads, to replace a bridge culvert for Bridge File 1656, and that will be partially grant funded, and then updating the rear gate automation in the new yard. So in 2020, we are proposing 4 grader replacements. There's going to be looking at getting the new sand shed out at the shop, getting a wobbly packer for the grader, 4 trucks for vehicle replacement, and some of that vehicle replacement is also due to the unfortunate hail situation this summer, so we've had some of the stuff will be carried forward with that. We have a roadside mower replacement, and we're going to allocate half of from the 2019 reserves to replace survey equipment for GPS. Any public works questions? And just overall, the increase in the budget that you see is strictly due to capital. We're seeing a lot of capital that we are replacing in 2020 for public works. Yes, Dave?
Just one thing, bushing alongside the roads, it's not just for sidelines and stuff, it's also if at the roots of the trees are starting to go into the side of our roads, that's why we do some of that brushing too. Seems we're televising this year, I thought they should know that. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? So then we jump to recreation, and that's going to be on pages, I made a mistake, oh, sorry. So it's on page 13. So 71 and 74, recreation and culture and libraries and museum, that's what I'm going to discuss all in this one. So recreation, overall in 2020, there's not a significant change to recreation. The biggest change that I'm seeing in the recreation department is we are increasing the village recreation funding, and that's going to go up. So it's going up $5 per capita, is that what we said, Yvette?
Yes. No, 250, sorry.
Sorry, 250. I've looked at way too many budget numbers in the last 3 weeks. So overall, continued focus on building community partnerships while providing a variety of programs will be a focus for recreation. I'm not sure there's much I can really add. It's pretty status quo. We'll still be doing our special rec funding that we do $50,000 a year. We'll still be taxing for that and collecting on it, as well as we will still continue to do our funding for the community groups.
Operational assistance, and the operational assistance grant has remained consistent with MSI projected for the next 2 years.
With that, the transfers to other government, that's the transfers to the rec board or what?
Town recreation.
Town recreation.
We tax for that with a special mill rate, and then we remit it to the town. Works just like the police and education.
So now I'm going to just stay there on page 12. This is going to be planning and development. So planning and development in 2020, really there's not, the biggest thing we're going to be working on is the completion of IDPs with neighboring municipalities as deemed necessary under the Modernized Municipal Government Act and the Intermunicipal Cooperation Framework, the ICFs, with the town of Stettler, the summer village of Rosen Sands and White Sands, Big Valley and Denelda, and any other neighboring municipals as part of our new requirements under the MGA. So some of the ongoing projects in planning and development are implementing urban style addressing system in the hamlets and multi-lot subdivisions. So there'll be some adjustments with the village of Gadsby that they'll be seeing, and be something that we'll be rolling out when they're ready for that. The IDPs with neighboring municipalities and ICFs. We'll be reviewing the IDP with the town of Stettler. The Southeast Stettler Major Area Structure Plan will be being looked at. And the Buffalo Lake South Shoreline Management Plan is also an ongoing project. Some projects that were for consideration as well were basically the merger of Bothan County's land use bylaw merger of Gadsby's in the county. And so there's going to be some changes that will have to do with the village of Gadsby coming into the county fold. So that's going to be an ongoing project in 2020. Overall planning and development, the budget line has decreased, and a lot of that is to do with some changes of staffing as well as projects that we've committed to for 2020. We've also proposed in 2020 that aerial photography is going to be replaced in planning and development, and that was getting old. And all that is being funded out of a reserve transfer. So we had the reserves for it, and now we'll be coming out of reserves. Questions on planning and development? So now I'm going to go to Department 23. It's on page 8, and that's fire. So with regional fire, providing safe codes, inspection, and investigation service with a focus on recruitment and retention for training staff to be competent at a minimum level 1, which is the NFPA 1001. The 1001, I think it's actually called. So the department goals to maintain safety code certification through continued education program in the fire discipline, achieve success with recruitment and retention in all fire stations, continue to provide a safe environment for all staff, provide 1001 training as required, focus on a training house facility that they've proposed, and restructuring standard operation procedures. Another thing that is also being considered by the fire department is to determine the viability of a new fire station in the Buffalo Lake area. So that is something that they have looked at and discussed, and is something that has been discussed with council. So that still remains on the table. And then basically it's trying to ensure that we establish an adequate and reliable water supply at Buffalo Lake is another concern for them. So in 2020, the fire department is proposing to continue to add a reserve contribution for their radio upgrades that they're going to be doing. There's going to be a BRAT in Station 4 that's going to be added, which will be a transfer to reserve, so it'll be something in 2021. Provided we have cooperation with other municipalities, rescue watercraft for response areas in Buffalo Lake and the Red Deer River, and so that is something that is dependent upon other cooperations of municipalities. A multi-purpose air shelter for fire operations with the town of Stettler we'll be looking at, and a consideration for if there will be a water supply boat at Buffalo Lake. So those are some of the items. And the big reason for an increase within the fire department is to do with capital. So we've got some capital replacements that are on there, so that's what you're seeing as an increase on page 8 with the fire increase. Questions on fire?
This is not fire, this is overall. For our public viewing this, can they see this and see the numbers when they're on the screen, or do they only see us sitting around?
They're only seeing you, however, the budget document is now live on our website.
Yeah.
Money.ca, on the left-hand side, there's a budget button, and all of our pertinent information is there, along with this full document.
Absolutely. Yes, Dave, sorry?
There's a reason we don't comment on this budget because we've seen it for 4 or 5 meetings and to make it balance, so we went over it with fine tooth comb already, so we're just listening to it, and, you know, if anybody, we might have a question or two. Sometimes we're not gonna have questions on every one that's brought up because we made the budget, or helped. We didn't make the budget, we helped.
And it is a requirement to have the budget to be public, whether you just have a meeting, whether you do a live broadcast like this, whatever, it is a requirement to do some sort of,
I think the public should know that.
so. So no other questions on fire? Okay. So I'm gonna go to protective services and emergency management, so, page 8 and 9, so I'm gonna pick on emergency management next. We've seen some significant changes in emergency management, and I personally, my comment is a lot of it is coming from some of the emergency responses that we've seen within the province of Alberta, that changes were implemented. So there's been a lot of training that's going on, and the protective services crew is busy making sure all of that is updated and working on that diligently. I think it was a bigger project than everybody thought, and it requires all staff to have additional training. So it's not just those guys, all staff is having to make sure we're at a certain level. So that's basically emergency management and the reason you see an increase there. Then in protective services, so this is top of page 9, protective services. So in 2020, their budget reflects the ability to respond to calls of service efficiency and effectively, along with maintaining and increased visibility of the peace officers in the county of Stettler. They continue to practice safety measures for the protection of officers, continued relationship building with the public, and continued relationship building with external, provincial, municipal, and federal agencies. They continue to work with truck safety, commercial vehicle safety alliance inspections to increase safety of county road users, as well as they've been implemented a program called Coffee with a Cop in collaboration with the RCMP. Some of the projects for consideration include enhanced crime prevention through environmental design program and crime mapping patrols. And also they were impacted by the hail and some changes within their fleet that they have. So in 2020, there will be a replacement of a unit also in protective services. And they'll be looking at an every 2-year replacement, not for the current one, but just to rotate through the 3 units that they do have. So, but the big thing that you see as a change in protective services is the policing. So the contracted services is up considerably in protective services, and that's because the policing, that's where you're showing the expense of where we've got to pay that out. The revenue you see in the taxes. Any questions on protective services? So now I'm going to flip to page 12, to agricultural services. In 2020, the budget reflects continued programs such as Alberta Environmentally Sustainable Agricultural Projects and partnering with groups such as Battle River Research Group, and Cows and Fish, and also other municipalities such as Flagstaff, Starland, and Paint Earth. This includes hosting an assortment of workshops to better our community. Ag Services plans on offering the same level of service in Ag Services, considering the changes that they're now within operations, but the plan is to continue operating at the same level of service that they've had. Some of the ongoing projects include educational activities, grazing schools, lady livestock clinics, winter feeding workshops, water health, estate planning, shelter belt workshops, mental health seminars, and pest and disease updates, which we've had some great success in hosting over the last number of years. Some projects for consideration are agricultural chemical jug cleanup, egg plastic recycling, rolling out the absentee wormwood as a noxious weed across the county, and reviewing and update the emergency response plan for agricultural disaster, weather, pest, and disease. So in 2020, the only capital that we're seeing for replacement is a pickup truck, and this is also being pulled out of reserve. Reserve funds have been set aside. The plan is in Ag Services to ensure that reserve transfers are taking place, and so the funds are there to pull that truck from reserves as well. Ag Services is seeing a loss of revenue in grants, and that's to do with the loss of the STEP grant. So the government cut the STEP grant, and last year we were fortunate enough to get it. We don't get it all every year, but we did get it last year, and losing that was a significant item that we had identified. Any questions on Ag Services? So I'm going to jump to pages 10 and 11 for utilities. So it'll be our water and sewer. So the 2020 budget continued focus on providing excellent service to ratepayers. We look forward to the continuation of rural water line installations as directed by council. We'll continue hauling water to Buffalo View Estates while administration and council lobby support for a water line extension from White Sands Truckfield to Roshan Sands. We'll be conducting lead sample testing in our 2020, and this is some changes with the Alberta environment requirements. So we have increased testing that we have to do this year. Some ongoing projects are the Erskine Lagoon valve replacement, fire hydrant flushing and maintenance to ensure proper operation and to flush water mains, valve exercising program to ensure proper operation, sewer main flushing, and rural main flushing. So some of the projects for consideration for 2020 forward are continuation of rural water line expansion and to increase the funding with that. Looking at the Village of Gadsby infrastructure and ensuring it is up to the levels we required at, and cleaning of reservoirs. So in 2020, we have some water lines. We've increased our water line replacement, so it's up to 200,000 that we're looking at for 2020. And SCADA system upgrades at a couple of key spots that we need to upgrade. There's also a pickup truck that's also included in there. Any questions on water? Or sewer? We're in the home stretch now. So, administration. So if you jump to page 7, and I'm going to kind of touch all the departments that are smaller in nature or that don't have a department head per se involved directly with it. So 2020, administration continues to be fiscally responsible, conservative budgeting, and presenting a 4-year operational budget and a 6-year capital plan. These are, like I've stated before, MGA guidelines. Some of the ongoing projects for 2020 are to ensure we're compliant with government guidelines with the emergency management, ensuring our staff are at the levels that they need to be at. Working on increasing our health and safety program to exceed requirements. There's been a lot of health and safety requirement changes, and we're trying to ensure that we're up to speed on all of that. We are looking forward to hopefully in the first quarter of 2020 presenting the asset management plan. We are just working on some of that stuff now. Depending on how our audits go and everything ties in there is how the asset management will tie in. We are working on our land file digitization right now, so the vault digitization is ongoing. And we are increasing our space for our vault as we are running out of space as we continue to get additional municipalities back, as well as records that are required to be stored. Just because we digitize them, we're not allowed to destroy them. It's a bit of my pet peeve. But until such time as our entire vault is digitized, we cannot destroy our paper copies. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword right now. So eventually we will be there.
One question on that, will the new vault be completed in 2020?
Yeah, so it's, so what we actually have right now is a vault, which is right in the center of the building, and it's the proper vault with a big bulky door and concrete blocks. And then what you guys might not know is down in the east wing over by where planning development is, we've actually got a little file room, which holds a lot of our archive stuff. So what we're going to do is just expand that room. We're going to return the garage to being a garage, basically, and make that into a file storage room. That was a renovation that was done quite cheaply back in 2007. So as a result, we can actually do and undertake most of the work in-house in 2020 with minimal expense. So we'll expand our file storage footprint by quite a bit, which should secure us well into the future. We're not changing the footprint of the building at all, which was a significant goal of administration's, and we'll spend just operational funds making that happen.
Digitization be completed in 2020?
Of the land files, yes.
Yeah, we focused on one project to do the land files, which we have a third-party contractor doing, and that will be done in 2020. The digitization of our vault effectively serves as a backup to our paper files. We all know how hurt Starland is by losing a good deal of their records in their fire, and that's what we aim to avoid. Unfortunately, proving in a court that your digital file is an unaltered original, it's possible, but it's tough to do, and we're not at that level yet. So that's why we continue to maintain the paper files and will for the foreseeable future.
So all council expenses, we are seeing a decrease in council expenses. We adjusted the per diems and some other small expense lines, as well as what we did with council is there was the track funding was recognized in 2019 that you guys provided to the SURF, is that what it was called, committee? And so that was in there. So that's why we are seeing a decrease in council bottom line. Administration, so between pages 7 and 8, we are seeing also a decrease in administration, and there's been some changes within staffing levels, just staff that has left or retired, so we've seen that throughout the county, as well as adjusting for costs, and some fewer projects that we're working on that required some additional resources in past years, such as the asset management plan. So that's why we're seeing the decrease there. Is there questions on administration before I jump over that one? Just that slide down there.
Skip through that, do you?
So then I'm going to jump to page, on page 10, there's airport, no changes with that. Then I jump to page 11, page 43, garbage disposal and collection. And there is an increase in that. And we it went to the Stettler Waste Board, and they voted in favor of a $3 per capita increase on Stettler Waste Management. So that was the changes in Stettler Waste Management, which affected the county of Stettler. Then we have 51, which is our family, oh, sorry. See, I'm trying to skip those.
What was the increase for? Are they adding something?
So the increases, really what they boil down to on Stettler Waste, one of the big things at Stettler Waste, they have a reserve policy that they aim to meet every year. And we've struggled in past years to hit that reserve, to ensure the reserves are being met. They have a lot of risks with their post-closure liability, and we have been flagged that we probably don't even have enough in the post-closure liability with Stettler Waste. There was some capital that was replaced in 2018, 2019, and they did not borrow for that, and they ended up using their reserves, but depleted their other reserves in that process to do that. With that happening, they said, no, we want to repay those reserves. So that was a big chunk of making sure that we're repaying for capital that was replaced. And then just increases in staff that we're seeing at increases in staff at the part-time staff at the additional transfer stations with requirements that we're having, some of them have been opened more hours now. So those are some of the high-level highlights. There was one more, but I can't remember it now offhand. Yes, increase and in cost with recycling. Yeah. But right now, the way it looks for Stettler Waste is there was a per capita increase for 2020, but 2021 is looking like when we did their forecast for it, was looking like there wouldn't be an increase in 2021. Any other questions on waste? So then there's the FCSS, the Family and Community Support Services. No real changes there, so I'm gonna kind of skip over that one. As well as 56, which is cemeteries, there was no changes there, and that's just where we provide the funding for it. So overall, we are, at the end of page 14, we can see a deficit there at the end of 2020 of 5.3 million. But that we still have to then factor in that there's some adjustments that we have to make. And those adjustments would include for amortization, principal payments, lease financing, receivables, inventory adjustments, and commitments to and from reserves. So then at the end of the day, we have a profit that we're presenting a balanced budget for the 2020 year of $1,672. So we are in fact at a balanced budget. And at the bottom of page 15, you can see our reserves there. And you can see that 2019, we're projecting to be just under 10 million. And by the end of 2023, we are going to be close to the $11 million. And that's where we're projecting our reserves to be at. And that is my 2020 to 2023 budget presentation, if there's no questions.
Questions?
From the public?
Maybe, but I guess it'll be by email or
phone calls.
phone call.
I will also point out that in the middle of your package, I'm on the right book, that is where your capital plan is for 6 years. And it's broken down per department as to what we and they have flagged for capital replacement, just for information purposes.
Mr. Chairman, in front of the public, I would certainly, on behalf of council, wish to thank Krista for all her work in preparing this budget, and Yvette and all the staff. I know they worked many hours and had many obstacles thrown in their path, especially in the last few weeks, so thank you very much.
And I'd like to thank Andrew and Nikki for pulling this together at the 11th hour. It was a bit of a crazy one. I think this was the craziest we've ever had doing it, so.
Anything else for you, CEO Gus?
I don't think so. Like, we've had workshops, but, I just wanna, you reiterate, that worked very well, is that when we start the budgeting process, we always, go in with a 0% tax increase. That's what staff aims for. So we look at our service levels, we look at our capital, and we always try to get that 0% increase, or a very minimum increase if we have to recommend that to council at all. With the losses that we faced with the shallow gas and the oil revenue, we budgeted an extra $1 million out of our revenue, and then had to deal with the extra policing, the losses in MSI grants. I was very proud of staff, the way they came together and came with their priorities, not with their wish lists. They came with their priorities.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for the public at home, what are the percentage increase?
For taxes, 1.6.
Just so they know.
Cost of living.
Okay, is there any other, Councilor Gender?
For the purpose of increase, what are our payments a year, like for purchasing for, and how many years is it over?
I think we were looking at 20.
No, for the graders, we were looking at 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years, and we did, I think, Chrissy, you can probably outline this better, but we did look at borrowing from our reserves to finance them, paying them back. We're going out to Alberta Capital Finance, who's kind of like this these days. And it was actually gonna cost us money because of the rate of return that we get on our reserves for interest. So if we borrow from ourselves, we would probably lose money than going through Alberta Capital Finance.
When we looked at the rates, actually, we were tempted just to take a, $10 million loan for no reason other than let it sit in our bank account, because we got more interest than Alberta Capital Finance would have charged.
Somebody, government agency guy will be watching this. So,
So the interest rate for 3 to 5 years is from as of December 15th, is 2.069 to 2.161. So.
Yes. There's no other questions? Other comments? Yeah, Councilor Gender?
make it quick.
It showed that we were gonna be selling graders this coming year for $500,000. Doesn't say no limit.
Is that the capital, we don't take, income into the capital plan? But it'll be in, Public Works. Thank you.
4 in, 4 out, and then we're gonna sell 1 more, 5 out. So we're trying to reduce the 14 down to 12.
Here we go. Public, so there's a line-by-line budget also, which we will be posting on the webpage, and council has a copy of it. Right, if you don't, we'll give you a copy of it. But you've seen them several times before, so PW sales, and we've got, we've got 558,000 for sales in that one.
Any other questions? You're good? Okay, well, if there's no other questions or comments, we will close the 2019 budget meeting. Thank you for all staff and councilors for attending. It would have been nicer to see a few more people in our chambers, but
I was just happy to see everybody that showed up this year. Even though you had to be here, guys. Aye, looks good.
We're done?
I